Hello everybody, today we have kind of a different kind of video. So lately I've been uploading a lot of Pokemon Close Combat videos, and if you guys don't already know, which I talk about every single video, but basically this is a fan-made Pokemon fighting game, like a traditional fighting game, but with Pokemon, and it's actually really well done. There's a lot of Pokemon in the game. It is a lot of fun. All the Pokemon have different movesets. A lot of them are based off of traditional fighting games, and it's kind of mixed in with some Pokemon elements to make everything very unique. But overall, this game is very solid, and as a Pokemon fan myself and a fan of fighting games, it makes me very happy that this game exists. So today I kind of wanted to make a different kind of video. Instead of just kind of showing off some characters, talking about gameplay like I've been doing, I wanted to actually make a tier list and kind of talk about the game itself. And more specifically, I want to give you guys my ideal roster for a Pokemon fighting game. Now I will be basing this kind of off of that game specifically. So as you can see right here, I do have this top tier right here, which is already in game. These are all the playable Pokemon in Pokemon Close Combat, with the exception of Como, who's being added later on, but it is confirmed. So this right here is the current roster of the game. But as you can see, there are still a lot of fighting type Pokemon left that could potentially join the roster later on. So I kind of want to give my thoughts about the current roster of the game, and then also give you my potential picks for the future roster. Now I'm pretty sure that the final roster of the game is going to have 24 Pokemon. This is based off of a tweet that I saw earlier today, I think it was, kind of confirming that basically. And then also when you just look at the roster in game, there are 24 slots, so it kind of just makes sense to go ahead and cap it off at 24, at least for now. And so right now, with all the current picks in the game, including the Pokemon that's coming out later on, that does bring us to 18, which means we have 6 more slots left. So I will be having 6 Pokemon in that please add category. We're going to have a couple in the decent pick area, and then we'll have some in the meh area as well. And then down here, I kind of just put all the alternate forms, since there's like Dynamaxing, Gigantamax, Mega Pokemon, pre-evolutions that are just never going to happen. So that's kind of all right there. I did go ahead and throw all the Hitmons down here. They are in-game, Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, and all of them. But it's technically Tyrogue that's in the game, and it can evolve into those Pokemon. So just to make things less confusing and to kind of go off the actual roster itself, that's why I have them down there. But at the end of this video, I would appreciate it if you guys give a like if you do enjoy it, and make sure you also subscribe to the channel, and also let me know in the comments which 6 Pokemon you would add in addition to the current roster of the game. Now before I actually give my picks, I do want to kind of talk about the current roster in the game just a little bit, just to kind of give some insight, since I know not everybody has played the game. I think the current roster is actually very interesting in the game, especially because we're seeing a lot of Pokemon that traditionally, you wouldn't expect to see in a game like that. So instead of seeing like your standard Lucario that you would expect to see anywhere, Lucario is actually not in the game whatsoever. So I think that's really interesting. Then you have Pokemon like Phalanx. It's like, it doesn't even make sense when you think about it, but then you play the game and the character is actually very unique and makes a lot of sense. And so I think from a character standpoint, every character feels very unique. There are obviously some picks there that just make sense. You got Primeape, you got Poliwrath, Pokemon like that. But you do have some very unique picks like Galarian Zapdos, Phalanx for example. Mega Lopunny is very interesting that they just added. And so I think it's really cool. I do think that there's a good mixture of traditional fighting game characters like Blaziken for example, who just reminds me of a traditional fighter basically, kind of like a Ryu. And then there's also Pokemon with just very unique mechanics in general, like Tyrogue for example, where based on the attacks that you use, your hits and your kicks, that determines what you evolve into in the next round. So that's very interesting in my opinion. I'm also a big fan of the zoners, so I really enjoy playing Toxicroak, who's a heavy zoner, and also Breloom. And then there's some characters that just feel just entirely unique from anything I've ever played before. For example, like Poliwrath, who's actually kind of been my main in this game. Just his bubble mechanics are just very interesting. He's a character that can fight up close, but you can also zone with him, which I really like. And then of course you have your faster Pokemon as well, so like Mienshao, Mega Lopunny. These are your rush down characters that are very fragile but can hit hard. You also got your tankier Pokemon like Chestnut or Beware that can survive a lot of hits and just deal crazy damage pretty much. And then I also love seeing the Paradox Pokemon. It's really interesting to see Great Tusk and Slitherwing in the game, and I think they're really well designed. I think Slitherwing is like huge. Like, this Pokemon just feels very unnatural with how big it is, but it hits hard and it's just crazy. And of course, I know there's a lot of big fans of Heracross and Scrafty. These are also Pokemon that are very cool and just really love the movesets in the game. And lastly, the one that I didn't mention at all is Medicham, who sometimes I just completely forget he's in the game. But anyways, the next character coming out will be Como. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I've never understood how to pronounce the name, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But Como's coming to the game later on. It did win like the fighter vote. So basically in the Discord server for the game, you can earn points by entering tournaments and things like that, and those points translate into votes, and then at the end of like seasons you can basically vote for the next Pokemon to be added. So it's really cool because like the game is very community based, and the community actually has a big say in the Pokemon that get added, so I think it's really cool. So who knows, maybe this video right here might have some influence. We'll see. I'll definitely let you guys know what I want to see added the most. So, you know, if you guys are out there watching, you'll know exactly who to add next. But yeah, that's basically the base roster. Like I said, Pokemon are very unique. And if you guys want to see breakdowns of individual characters, I have been uploading those on my channel, so go check them out. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the remaining fighting type Pokemon. Now, when I was looking at this tier list, I didn't realize that there's actually not a whole lot of fighting type Pokemon. When you kind of get rid of the pre-evolutions and things like that, you're kind of left with just a handful of fighting type Pokemon. So down here, what we have left is 38 Pokemon. And like I said, we will be adding 6 more to the roster of the game, so that means 32 will get cut essentially. I'm gonna go ahead and try to only have 6 in that please add category, but if we have to throw a few more in there, I'll go ahead and do that as well. So I'll kind of go in order here, starting off with Machamp, who is the only Gen 1 Pokemon left. I mean, I guess Surfetch'd kind of counts because it's an evolution of Farfetch'd, but Machamp, you know, of course, one of the OG fighting type Pokemon. You know, we do see Machamp in Pokken, who is, you know, pretty interesting in that game as well. Obviously has the 4 arms, very unique attribute right there. But overall, I feel like Machamp wouldn't really add that much to the game. I do think it would be more of a traditional kind of character, which I feel like we kind of have. I guess we kind of don't really have a lot of traditional fighters in this game. But the thing about it is I feel like Machamp would be kind of like a grappler character, and I feel like we already have Pokemon that fit that role, so like Beware kind of. I just don't think Machamp would really add that much. I think it'd still be a cool pick because it's a cancel Pokemon. A lot of people love the cancel Pokemon. But I'm gonna go ahead and throw it in decent pick. I don't think it's enough to, you know, justify one of those last 6 spots. It's kind of limited here, so we gotta be careful with our picks. We also do have the Paldean Tauros and all the different forms. I think there's 3 forms total, if I remember correctly. Same thing here. I just don't really think it really fits. Honestly, I'm gonna throw this in Meh because I don't really see Tauros bringing a whole lot. I don't think it'd be very cool. I mean, we do have a lot of Pokemon already that are, you know, on 4 legs. You got like a Great Tusk, for example, a Slitherwing. I feel like both of those Pokemon are able to do way more than a Tauros. Tauros just seems like a very basic kind of character to add in. I mean, design-wise, it just reminds me a lot of Great Tusk, except Great Tusk can roll around and do all kinds of things. So Tauros wouldn't really add that much, I don't think. Next, we do have Galarian Farfetch'd. I forgot that Galarian Farfetch'd is a thing. I kept looking at that and I was thinking, oh yeah, Surfetch'd. But then I saw him down here in the corner, so I guess we'll go ahead and get rid of Galarian Farfetch'd and we'll talk about Surfetch'd instead. Now, the thing about Surfetch'd, I think that, so I'm a little bit biased here. I'm a big fan of Farfetch'd, actually. I kind of always have been. I do think it'd be interesting because, again, every fighter feels so unique. And what other character on this roster has a sword or a shield? You know what I mean? Like, look at this entire like list of fighting type Pokemon. There's really nothing else that looks like it. And it would be a smaller Pokemon right now. When you think of the smaller Pokemon on the roster, you think of Tyrogue, you think of Primeape, I guess Heracross too, but a lot of the Pokemon are generally a little bit taller. And I think, you know, Surfetch'd being a shorter Pokemon, having the sword, you know, having the shield, I think it'd be a very interesting character to kind of fit in. And honestly, I would just love to see it. I think it would be one of those unique picks like we've been seeing with a lot of these Pokemon. Next we have Mewtwo X. I just don't really want this, if I'm being honest. Like, it doesn't really excite me. I mean, I like Megas and everything, but I mean, it's kind of like with Pokken. Like, I just feel like the Shadow Mewtwo, like, it's kind of, I don't know, it didn't excite me, you know what I mean? It's like something I didn't want to see at all. After that, we have Hariyama, and we also have Iron Hands. Obviously, both fit kind of in a similar category here. With the Paradox Pokemon, you know, they're obviously similar in nature. I think they'd be decent picks, but I don't think I'd really necessarily want to see them added. I do think that Iron Hands would be kind of interesting, just to have a future Pokemon. Right now, all we have is like the past Pokemon. So I think Iron Hands could be a little bit more interesting than a Hariyama. But again, I just not really, well, Iron Hands I could maybe consider. I'm trying to think here. I mean, you know, you got the hands kind of floating away, you know what I mean? So you can maybe throw those out, you know what I mean? Like, if it's floating, you get what I'm trying to say? Iron Hands would be kind of interesting, I think. I guess I'll go ahead and throw it in for now. Hariyama's going to stay in decent, but I think Iron Hands will be a little bit more interesting. After that, we have Infernape. I'm going to go ahead and throw it in decent. It used to be one of my favorite Pokemon, actually, back when I played Gen 4. It just kind of, doesn't really have enough for me to kind of warrant one of those spots. I think it could be an interesting pick. But again, we do have like Primate, for example, so I think I'm good there. We got Lucario. To be honest, I'm kind of tired of seeing Lucario games. I'm just gonna throw it in, man. This is just, again, this is very biased, right? This is my personal tier list, so you guys could completely disagree, and I'm sure that you will. I'm just kind of tired of seeing Lucario everywhere. I mean, Smash, Pokken, it's kind of everywhere. You know, I think it's kind of nice that it's not in this game because it's allowing other Pokemon to shine. So I'm perfectly okay if they never add Lucario. After that, we do have Gallade and Iron Valiant. I know Iron Valiant was one of the Pokemon that was voted on and actually lost. Gallade, again, not interesting enough for me to consider. Iron Valiant is a little bit more interesting, but I guess he kind of has a sword, right? Kind of, sort of. A little bit more interesting than Gallade, but just not enough for me to consider adding. Emboar, you know, I think people hate on Emboar unfairly. I'm only going to throw in a decent pick because I actually genuinely feel bad for this Pokemon. It gets absolutely nothing out there. So, you know, otherwise I would put it in meh, but I honestly just feel bad for Emboar, so I'm just going to throw in a decent pick. Next, we have another Pokemon that lost one of the votes, I'm pretty sure. And this is, you know, for the developers, if you guys are listening here, this is the Pokemon I actually want to see the most added to the game. Conkeldurr is my favorite fighting type Pokemon, so if you consider adding any Pokemon from this list or this video, make it be Conkeldurr, because I really would love to see Conkeldurr added. I mean, this thing will be a beast in the game, so please, like, I hope one of these last 6 slots goes to Conkeldurr. I think he just deserves it. Now, next we have Sock and Throw, and I think... Okay, hear me out on this one, right? I think, honestly, we've seen some interesting things, right? So we've seen like Tyrogue, for example, that can evolve into other, you know, Pokemon. And so honestly, when it comes to these two Pokemon, I could see a mechanic where it's kind of like a tag team situation, right? So maybe some kind of mechanic where you're fighting with one and then you can tag into the other one. Like, they're kind of like the same Pokemon in a sense, you know what I mean? They kind of just go hand in hand. And so because of that, I could honestly see this being like a 2-in-1 kind of character. There's no way any of these Pokemon could justify a slot on their own, but as a 2-in-1 kind of character, this could be a really interesting mechanic to kind of add to the game. And I think it'd be one of those situations where the mechanic alone would make it very exciting. You know, the Pokemon nobody really cares about, but having that tag team kind of aspect or something very unique with those Pokemon, I think could be very interesting. Next, we have Hisuian Lilligant, another interesting Pokemon. Decent pick, but just not really enough there for me. We also have the legendary trio right here of Cobalion, Terrakion, Parisian. We do also have the Keldeo as well. None of these Pokemon really interest me. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna just throw all of them down here. We've got Meloetta, which again is an interesting legendary Pokemon. I think could be a decent pick. Could be one of those smaller Pokemon, kind of float around. Has some interesting mechanic with singing, you know, potentially. Just again, not enough for me to warrant an actual slot in the game. Pangoro is an interesting pick. Again, I'm a big fan of the Kalos region, so I would actually love to see it, but I don't think it necessarily deserves one of those 6 slots. I could definitely see it though. I think it'd be an interesting pick. I think instead for a Kalos pick, I think we should go with Hawlucha. This would be a unique pick, flying type Pokemon. There's a lot you could do with this with a very unique moveset. This Pokemon just makes sense. This is one that you don't see in a lot of games necessarily, but in a fighting game, it just makes sense. And so honestly, so far out of this row of characters, I think the one most likely to get in would actually be Hawlucha. We got Crabominable, and this is an interesting pick as well. I personally wouldn't add it, but I do think it would be a cool pick. Shout out to Damien if he's watching this. I played some games against him on the channel. He's a big fan of this Pokemon. I know that for a fact. So I'm going to go ahead and scoot him all the way up to the top of decent pick. I'm not going to add him just yet to the please add category, but I will go ahead and put him kind of on that borderline for you. We've also got Passimian, and honestly, some people might hate on this, but I think this would be a great pick for the game. Go ahead and add another zoner, throw some coconuts, and just have this be like an agile, fast zoning kind of Pokemon. I know I might get some hate for that one, but I think this would be a very interesting pick. Next, we have some of the Ultra Beasts, and honestly, same thing for me. Just don't really care to see them added. I don't know. I like to see a lot of the more kind of unknown Pokemon, like the weaker Pokemon added, like just to see like the legendaries and the beasts and all that kind of stuff. To me, it doesn't make it as interesting, I guess. And so because of that, I'm also going to throw Marshadow down there. Grapple Locked honestly doesn't interest me that much as well. I don't really see it being a great fit for the game. I could see it being interesting, but just not enough for me. After that, we do have Zamazenta. For me, same thing like I was just saying. Like, Personally, I would rather not see any legendaries added to the game. I know Galarian Zapdos is in the game, but I think it's fine, you know what I mean? I don't want to see like B2X in the game. After that, we have Urshifu, which I think would be a great pick. I personally don't want to see it. I'm tired of playing against Urshifu in Pokemon VGC. You know, I've had my fair share of experiences against Urshifu, but as a fighting type Pokemon, it's really interesting and it does have the different forms as well. And I think it could honestly be a pretty great pick for the game. I think it could be kind of more of a traditional fighting character, and honestly, you could mix in some water moves as well, so that could be kind of interesting. Hisui and Sneasler would also be a great pick in my opinion. I could see this being a really good one. You got the claws, you got the poison stuff going. We also have Quaquaval, who is of course the water type starter from Scarlet and Violet, and even though this was my starter pick for the game, I'm gonna go ahead and throw it in meh. Palmon is like the most basic looking Pokemon ever. I just wouldn't love to see it at all. We've also got Flamigo. Honestly, I'm really gonna be honest here. I don't see how you make Flamigo work. I don't even know why this is a fighting type Pokemon. It just doesn't really make sense to me. So I'm just gonna throw it in there. Koraidon could be interesting. I don't see them actually adding it though, so I'm gonna throw it a decent pick. I do think it would be a decent pick. I just don't see them adding it. And lastly, we do have Hisui and Decidueye. Also, just to note, I realized that Okidogi is not on this list for whatever reason. Okidogi, I will go ahead and throw in decent pick just for reference. But when it comes to Hisui and Decidueye, I know I kind of maxed out my tier here, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw it up there as well. I think Hisui and Decidueye would be really nice for the game. I think it could bring a lot to the game. Again, I know I'm a little bit biased because I do like zoners, but to be fair, you know, I only have 2 zoners here. Everybody else, you know, fights up close. I think as zoners though, these 2 characters right here are kind of the best options as far as all the fighting type Pokemon that are left. I think Halucha would just be a completely unique character to the game, another smaller character too. And like I said, Sock and Throw could have some kind of unique tag team mechanic. Iron Hands, this is the one that's kind of like, on the border for me, so I'll go ahead and put it in the back right there. Again, I think it could be kind of interesting just because it's a future Pokemon. It's got the hands that are detached, so I think you could do some cool stuff with that. We also, of course, have Sirfetch'd. Again, the sword, the shield, it just makes sense to me. And of course, the number 1 pick I want to see added is Conkeldurr. I really hope it happens, but we'll just have to see. But I mean, yeah, overall, I think this is a solid list, honestly. I think, you know, I might get roasted for it, but I think this is a very solid list right here. I would love to see these Pokemon added to the game. Again, if I had to kick one out, it would be Iron Hands. But overall, I think that there's a lot they can still do with the game. There are only 6 slots left, but there's so many to choose from. And like I said, every Pokemon they've been adding, their movesets have been very unique. So no matter who they add, I'm sure we'll all be happy with it. But that being said, let me know in the comments who you would like to see added to the game. In addition to the current 18 characters, let me know what 6 Pokemon you want to see added. And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give a like to the video. I'll be dropping some more videos here soon. I don't know which Pokemon I'm going to cover next for the game. I'll have to kind of decide, but I'll take a look at that and I will be dropping a video very soon. But that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all in the next one.